Brian Lee Crowley. He is managing editor at the McDonald-Laurier Institute. Today, though, we find him in Mobile, Alabama. Good to have you with us today, Brian. Thank you for taking a bit of time out of your schedule.
Thanks for the invitation, Todd.
So we know Robert Schellenberg is one. We know, of course, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor are the other two who are being held as well. We don't know what's going to happen on that front. Your reaction, though, to this new sentence for Robert Schellenberg?
Well, Todd, I hope that this helps Canadians to see the true nature of the Chinese regime. For successive governments in Canada have tried to cozy up to China for, legitimate economic reasons, but I have to say that what this action by the Chinese government does is to rip away the veil that obscures the true nature of the Chinese regime. They are an odious, thuggish regime that is now threatening Canadians with judicial execution because Canada will not kowtow to China on Ms. Meng's extradition to the United States. I think this is shocking behavior by any government, and by a government that aspires to be a superpower in the world and to spread its influence and power throughout the world, including into Canada. I think this should cause Canadians to have great concern about the nature of our relationship with China.
If what you say is true, Brian, I mean, what should Canada do? How do you stand up to a schoolyard bully, or as you put it, a thug regime?
Well, there are a couple of things that we can do. I think, for example, it's time for Canada to consider very seriously expelling the Chinese ambassador. This is a man who has made public comments portraying Canada as a racist country for pursuing the rule of law against someone before the Canadian courts. And he represents a country that, as we've said, that's threatening to judicially execute Canadians. I think we need to signal that that's totally unacceptable. I think we should begin to look at Magnitsky sanctions, which we have legislation in Canada that allows us to target specific individuals within a regime for human rights violations. I certainly think this qualifies. We could begin to seize their assets in Canada and otherwise punish those individuals. If necessary, I think we should consider visa restrictions on Chinese nationals coming to Canada, although I'm quite reluctant to punish Chinese for the bad behavior of their regime. And there are lots of other things that we could do internally. I think we also need to help rally the Western countries that are also committed to the rule of law, because Canada alone cannot really get the attention of China, cannot change its behavior. But if China begins to see that its bad behavior towards Canada has got broader implications in its relations with the West, I think this will cause them to pause in their campaign against Canada. They have a lot at stake here.
One last thing. The Chinese often look to the very top to sort of get the signaling and the messaging from a country. So Justin Trudeau, Brian, as you know, saying that this announcement was, quote, arbitrary. He also went on to say that the sentencing for Robert Schellenberg is, quote, worrisome and should be for all of our international friends and allies. Is that tough enough? Let me be blunt with you. I mean, should the Prime Minister be saying more? Should he be more assertive with the Chinese? And we understand it's very difficult and, tricky diplomatically when you're dealing with a country as prickly as the Chinese. But should Justin Trudeau be tougher with them?
Well, let me be blunt back, Todd. I think this response is completely inadequate. We now have a country that is arbitrarily detaining Canadians and in at least one case threatening to put them to death because Canada persists in wanting to apply the rule of law within this country. This is completely unacceptable behavior, and I think the government of Canada and the Prime Minister does no favors for the Canadians involved by making the Chinese think that, well, there's really nothing to be seen here. The Canadians are weak. The Canadians will not respond. The Chinese do not respect weakness. The Chinese respect strength. And Canada for too long has been seeking to ingratiate itself with China. And I think China has slapped us repeatedly in the face as a result. It's time for us to change, to make it very clear that the old policy of trying to suck up to China is history, and that Canada is now going to join the Western countries that are increasingly alarmed at China's bad behavior, and we must speak up on behalf of the values that distinguish Canada from China.
Brian Lee Crowley, Managing Director at the McDonald-Laurier Institute, a leading think tank in our country. Wonderful to have you on, Brian. I wish it was under better circumstances, but thank you.
Me too, Todd. Thank you.